Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. I have a presentation for you for a little app that I made for Android. Essentially, this is a little tool that I had to primarily make for myself because as a multimedia developer, somebody who takes part in more than one project, more than one type of media. Like I do music, I do multiple genres of music, I do video game development, multiple projects in game development, I do digital art, painting. There's a heap of different projects that I do. And the one big problem that I come across is being able to dedicate the time to work on every project or most of these projects and to ensure that in the greater scale, in the greater scheme, I have made some progress in all of these endeavors, in all of these projects that I'm actually interested to work with. So I have effectively decided I can't keep everything in my head. I can't track every single project in my head. And it's true for pretty much all the people. You can't keep too many things in your head at once. Aside from few gifted exceptions. So what I did is I essentially made an application that allows you to kind of moderate the amount of time you put into each task. Effectively, it's a to-do list. Or it's a task list. Now, the one major difference that sets this thing aside from actual task lists or to-do lists or any one of those applications that are already on the market is that this is specifically dedicated for these sort of conditions, these sort of cases where an artist, like a multimedia developer, needs to work on many projects. He or she wants to work on many projects, but self-control gets kind of tricky there. What I see is a lot of developers end up going into one project. They basically say, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this project for like half a year and I'm going to get this project done. And 2-3 weeks into the project, they experience massive burnout, just day in, day out. They'll work on the project and they'll experience this massive burnout and they'll end up getting discouraged from continuing working on this project. And this happens to me quite a lot. And in terms of game development, this happens to game developers when they work on this one great idea for a very long time, relatively. And then they will experience burnout. Everybody does. And what happens is they shelf the project, which may or may not be getting a chance to continue its development. So basically, this is very simple. You add your task, for example, game dev, and my game I'm working on is Artag Rise. So I'm going to add that. But I also need to work on game dev Dream Temple. These are two of my projects that I need to work with. Okay, so I have two of these in the list. All this app does is it allows you to just visualize the tracking of progress. So all you have to do is drop it into the currently active task and assign an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to the task. And that's it. You leave this phone on the side, you start working on a project, you dedicate just an hour and a half on a daily basis for this project. This is an advice that my father gives me because he sees me constantly switching between different projects. I do something in the lab, I do some electronics development, then like a half a month later or a month later, I work on programming and game development, and then I switch to music, and it's a mess. So with this case, you leave the app running. Once the timer runs out, it'll let you know. You can add another half hour, maybe, you want to finish the project. But this is going to visualize if you're adding that half hour to the project, there's a physical motion involved with it. So it's more of a psychological thing. You have to acknowledge it. It's not just a background thing. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll just work for a little bit more. You actually visualize that half hour on the app, and it will tell you when you've run out of time. Once you go through the particular session working on this project, it will mark it as complete and it will move on to the next task. So if it runs out of time, it'll turn red, it'll vibrate a bit. I'm thinking I'm going to add some sort of an alarm to it. But other than that, it ticks off your tasks. And once you've gone through the entire list of tasks, it clears the entire screen again. So I can add, for example, painting. And I can add, let's say, jogging. If you want to put some exercise into it, maybe have a weekly goal for running, right? Do a little bit of exercise, right? You go through the first task, second task, third task, last task is now on the screen. You click that off, and it resets the entire screen. This still depends on you putting the work in and kind of going by the app, but the app just puts that practice into a physical, visible interface. And as I said, I made this app primarily for myself, just because I'm involved in a bajillion different projects, and I have to kind of start exercising some sort of self-control so I don't experience burnout. One of the things that this particular app will give you is variety. If you have a lot of projects you work on, then switching between all these projects, just dedicating an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, by the end of the list, you will have made progress on all of your projects, and you have physically switched between one task to another. Another thing that I'm going to be adding to this app is task types or task groups. So I have multiple game development projects, and game development in itself is it's similar. One project, another project, the process for it is pretty much the same. So it doesn't really make sense for you to finish one project in game development and then the next 2 hours you're also doing game development on another project. It is an option. You can leave it in the same group and it will simply pop it back up. But if you want to, for example, group them, so you have 3 game development projects, you have 2 comic book projects, you have 2 painting projects, you have all this other bunch of stuff, and you don't want to be painting 2 projects in a row. I'm going to put it in the function that allows you to group all the painting projects together, all the game development projects together. So it varies. It gives you a variety of tasks, and it switches your mode, your creativity, so you get other things done. Once again, specifically for the purpose of keeping burnout at bay. Because I could work on 3 projects in a row, and it's still game development. It's still the same scene. It's this environment, all these monitors, this graphics tablet, this keyboard, and it's not just working on a particular project. It's being in the same environment. While in my case, I have a music studio downstairs, so I can go downstairs and write some music. Then I can come back here, do some game development. I have a drafting table over there, so I can do some concept art. It changes the scenery. And the biggest benefit I find of this particular project tracker or progress tracker is that this evolves strictly around your free time. I find a lot of to-do lists to go for this very strict schedule, which is totally fine. But I haven't seen an app that allows you to track the time, track the progress, but around your free time. So if you have something important to do it, and then come back and then resume the timer of working on the project. So in that sense, I try to use timers, and I try to use to-do lists and scheduling programs and say, I'm going to get up at 9 o'clock, and by 10 I'm going to be ready to work. So 10:30 I'll start working on this project, and like 12:30 I'll switch and have my break, and I would wake up at like 12 o'clock and I'm like, well, I guess that's not happening. What's next is on the list, right? So this doesn't skip over any tasks. This just works with your free time. I'm going to be continuing developing this slowly, little by little, maybe adding some additional options. Not a whole lot. This isn't a complicated application, really. But it will give you an overview of everything that you're doing. all the projects you're involved in. And it will, provided you embrace the method of application or method of running this program, it will ensure progress in all your projects and endeavors. That's the project, that's the application. It's available on the Android store. I haven't put it up on the iTunes or the Apple App Store. Maybe later on when I get a chance, when I get the hardware, because you need hardware in order to publish to the App Store, then I'll publish it there. For now, this is an Android application. All right, so I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys find this useful. I'll see you guys in the next video.